Can one cargo ship block the global trade? Hello everyone,
I'm Rahul Deodhar.
I am Prasanna Naidu and you are listening to the RightVIEWS podcast. A 193-kilometer canal, which is an artificial sea level waterway in Egypt, connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea, provides the shortest sea link between Asia and Europe. One container ship was grounded in the Suez Canal on Tuesday morning, completely blocking the traffic along the waterway and delaying a number of ships carrying cargo ranging from oil to consumer goods. Okay, so y'all must have heard about this news, which is trending a lot on most of the news channels in the international news area at least. So let's start from what are global supply chains and how do they work? Because if I'm not wrong, and if I remember, even when the whole world was shut down, there was lockdown everywhere due to the coronavirus pandemic last year. We were still able to uh, buy mobile phones on Amazon, right, Rahul sir? So how was that possible? That was possible through global supply chains. So please tell us about global supply chains and how do they work?
That's a good question. So, global supply chains, basically, there are two aspects to global supply chains. One is the flow of information. Basically, you design a product like an iPhone or let's say a new computer, laptop, or any multimedia, graphics card or something like that, or even something similar like a watch or a purse or a handbag or a dress that you design in your studio, which can be located anywhere in Europe, US, wherever. It's like Apple designs its products in Silicon Valley. Um, in France, you will find that many perfumes are being designed, many clothes are being designed, and that will design will be sent across to factories which may be in China, India, Bangladesh, and these factories will sort of source the raw material. Some will be coming from all over the world, and then once the final product is finished, it will be packed in boxes that we are all familiar with, and these boxes will be put in containers. And then is the main leg of supply chain, which is where the containers, the container ships will start from port in China or you know um, anywhere in where the factories are, and
Hmm.
it will take the cargo to the consuming markets. So that is basically um, how the supply chain works in terms of the product that you get to buy from your store starts out as a design somewhere in US, in Europe, in India, across the world, gets manufactured in place like China, India, Bangladesh, anywhere in the world, and it makes your way back into the stores that you go and buy the product. Now, all this has is underlined by two things. One is the supply or the flow of information
Hmm.
from designers to the manufacturing locations, and second is basically the manufacturing or the manufactured goods moving to your department stores. And once they are in your department, once they are on your shores, then you have the whole highway and railway system which takes them to your shop. So all this has underpinning of the global shipping industry. So this is possible. Your iPhone, which is $1,000 iPhone, can be transported across the world very cheaply because of ships, huge cargo ships.
But why were these cargo ships transport? The logistics was not stopped during the pandemic because um, even then a lot of many people were involved working there. So and this disease was, I mean, at start we didn't know about this disease, anything about it, like how is it transmitted. There was no such much research about it. We were still figuring out what to do, what not to do. But they stopped everything, but many countries stopped everything, but they didn't stop this international trade. It was still going on. I mean, what repercussions will it have if we stop the international trade completely?
I think, if you look at any of your product on your table, or if you're sitting around you, any product,
Hmm.
almost none of the products that are buying are 100% made in your country. Whatever, maybe few, like in India you might have textiles or something, but if you look at your TV, the laptop you're watching, or the phone you're watching this on,
Hmm.
or your earphones,
I agree,
any
but
particular product.
in such situation where
Mhm.
the daily needs, which is very necessary, like food and maybe clothes, which can be covered by the national local market, if we say.
Mhm.
Okay, so then why?
Why we didn't stop the supply chain?
Yeah, we didn't stop because global supply chains are, as you said, most of the products, but these products, the mobile and all, I if it's not there, it's fine with me when
No, no, that's what
my
Mhm.
life is
No,
at
that's what.
stake.
Correct. But every product that you are dealing with is involved with global supply chains. So one is the necessity of global supply chains are integral part of our daily life, and second is that most of the product shipment part is fairly not manpower intensive. Like packing and all is not manpower intensive. What it is critical is the handling. You have to take the trucks, you have to move the trucks. Once you do those kinds of things, then you will be fine. So in any case, it is not possible to regulate or stop these products going globally, because these products, people depend on them for everything.
Hmm.
So if you stop the products, then everything will go for a toss. There will be, huge lines for even daily necessities. Like in many countries, even food is imported from other countries. So how will you get food? That will be a problem. So in any case, it depends. It is essential for all these supply chains to be working in any case. Now the question is, ki, what all can you put in the supply chain? Almost everything. You can pack everything in containers and ship. That's not a problem. It doesn't get affected by COVID or these kinds of regulation, because those are not really handled. Once they are packed in boxes, they are not really handled by people. So your phone, when you touch your phone is probably, you are the, after it comes out of the factory and it is packed by the person who is packing the phone, after that probably you are the person who is touching your phone.
Okay,
There is no
okay,
other
I got it.
person
So
touching your
I
phone.
was just imagining it visually. So once the person packs it, and there will be standards of operating procedures, followed there. So people will be sanitizing the equipment, also the phones and all. And then once it's packed, it goes into one box, then another container, and then it
Yeah.
ships. That it's transported to the local
Yeah, you don't
whatever.
handle, nobody. Yeah, if you see even your phone box, okay, the
Hmm.
box in which your phone comes, we are just using phone as an example.
Yeah.
Once it is packed,
Hmm.
hardly anyone touches it, because it's all automated. It
Yeah.
goes, yes, it goes into a box. That box gets handled by people. That box finally finds its way into a container box. That container box gets handled by people. But your phone box will never get handled by people. So when it comes, it's the last shopkeeper who is handling that phone box. When the box of, let's say, 100 phones reaches him,
Hmm.
he opens that box and handles it. That's the time that shopkeeper will handle the box. And once it is like that, you open the plastic and you remove the box, the person who is touching the phone is you.
Hmm.
So the person in the factory, and then you have touched the phone. No one else has touched that new phone. So this
Interesting.
is the magic of supply chains in modern context. So it's really automated, it's really standardized, and there is a Like interoperability is so high that the phone that starts, let's say, from China, will get unloaded in Singapore, or may not, but I'm just saying, may get unloaded in Singapore. It may take a second ship from Singapore into some other place, and it may take into the third ship, and then it might reach you. So it might be in many ships, many people may be handling the container or the ship, but your phone gets to you when you open it. Only you have touched it. And that's why there is sometimes, on the phone you have the photo. These Chinese workers, they click a photo while testing,
Okay.
so those photos also you can find on the phone, because after that nobody has touched it.
Oh, I have never seen such thing, but okay. Uh, so this cargo ship named Evergiven, sorry. So I some read some news reports which are saying that it may take 4 days, 5 days, or maybe a week to solve this problem, because it's stuck right between the canal and it's blocking the whole canal. No space for other ship. I just didn't get. I mean, maybe my naive mind is getting that question, but still, how did it stop in such a way that it's blocking the whole canal? But because the cargo must be going in one way, either from the Arabian Sea to Europe side or from Europe to the Arabian Sea, right? So
Yeah.
if the fuel or the whatever machinery was not working, or whatever happens, whatever fault was there, the cargo must have stopped right in that direction only, right? Why did it
No,
turn?
no, the explanation that they have given is that there was a huge gale or a high speed wind, because there was a dust storm in that area. And
Okay.
because this cargo ship is so long, this is a 400-meter long cargo ship,
Hmm.
so it turned. So it was going like this and it turned.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when it turned, it got locked in the canal. So now nobody can move.
Hmm.
So they are trying to get it to unstuck. But now it is, sort of, because there were sand embankments on both sides, it got stuck. But that highlights one of the very important point, that these ships, like maybe carrying your phones or whatever your goods across the world, books many times, these ships are integral part of our daily trade. And the whole trade in this world is, like, not whole trade, but most of the trade, seaborne global trade, is there are three choke points. One is the Panama Canal, where you get from Atlantic Ocean into Pacific Ocean. One is the Suez Canal, where we get from Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean Sea. And the third is the Malacca Strait, which is the Singapore Strait, where you get from Indian Ocean into Pacific Ocean. So these three are the shortest distances between these seas, and the whole of global trade, not whole, but trade between these seas. Most of this trade goes through these 3 points. So anything coming from China to United States, it goes through Malacca Strait most of the time. It goes through on the west coast of United States. Anything from China, Japan to Europe goes through Singapore Strait and Suez Canal into the Mediterranean, and then you get into Mediterranean Sea. And most importantly, oil flows in the Strait of Hormuz, which is next to Malacca Strait, next to Suez Canal. The Suez Canal is on one side of Saudi Arabia. The Strait of Hormuz is not it's not a canal, but it's a small point. But from there on, the European side oil goes through Suez Canal. So
That
it
is
comes out from that.
that is the point
Uh,
where something happens between Iran and US, so Iran starts blocking that, right?
Yes, so it's between Iran and Saudi Arabia, the strip of sea which is between there.
Hmm.
Dubai is located in the Strait of Hormuz, and that's why Dubai has got that importance as a port. It is not on the Red Sea, which is where the Suez Canal is. and that is why these are global choke points, and if anything happens, then it's a problem. Now, in Suez Canal, what happens is that Suez Canal is a wider canal, but it's not, I mean, it's also quite deep, but it's not that deep because it's, of course, a man-made canal. So you have a limitation on how much weight the ship can carry. It cannot be too deep. Once you put weight in a ship, the ship sinks below the water level.
Yeah.
So it cannot sink too much. It can sink, I think, about 14 meters. That's the maximum draft. It's a draft of the ship. So if your ship is light, like it's not carrying enough things, then it will sink less in the water. So it can pass through most of these canals. So this is important, and once that ship is there, see, if the ship is sinking deeper, then it's also more stable. It has got more weight, so a wind or something cannot move it as much. And always on this ship, when the ship enters the canal, the canal pilots or canal, there are these experts who navigate the ship through the canal. Their job is to navigate the ship through the canal. They go get in the ship on one side and get off the ship on the other side. So once you enter the canal, so that is what their job is, and they do that because they know this canal inside out. Okay. And they carry the ship across. So there were two of these pilots for every ship, and if there is a longer ship, then you have more pilots, and you have also tugboats to help keep the ship in a steady position. So that's how the navigation is controlled.
Okay, now.
And
Yeah, you were saying something?
No. So this is how it is controlled in all these canals. In Panama Canal, you have a problem of increasing the height of the ship. Like the ship is required to climb up, whereas in Suez Canal, it is not required to climb up. So there is a system of sort of docks and all which keeps raising the height, and that's how, locks, not docks. And it keeps, the water is filled in, the ship can float, and then it moves into the next level like that.
I didn't get how a ship climbs up in Panama Canal, you were saying.
Yeah, so what you do is you bring the ship into a sort of a big tank. Okay. You bring the ship. This tank has got higher, height. So you put water in that tank. The ship will float, right?
Yeah.
So the more water you put, the ship will continue to float. You equalize the water with the higher tank. Then you open the gate between the top tank and your tank, and then the ship floats into the other tank.
Yeah. But these things can be done only for small vessels, right? Not for cargoes.
No, for big vessels.
For cargoes, it is done.
Yes.
Oh my
So
God.
each canal has a size limitation because of this. So what kind of infrastructure you have put in. So in Panama Canal, the maximum size of the ship that can go through is called Panamax. So this is the size of the ship that can be accommodated. There's a restriction, there's a list, it can be this long, it can be this wide, it cannot be so, the draft should be so much, because it has to be lifted up, right? All that water goes in, then it is lifted up, then it moves into the next. What is the space based on that? So they changed this, and now I think it is a new Panamax, which is a little bigger ship. But Panama Canal is because you have to raise this ship, it is not as, the weight is not high. So it is, I think, about 80,000 deadweight tons. It is called deadweight tons, which is dry weight of the ship. In the water, the ship weighs less, meaning ship floats, right? So the weight of the ship, deadweight, is measured in deadweight tons. About 80,000, I think, it goes in Panama Canal. In Suez Canal, it goes up to 120,000 tons. I think in Singapore Strait it is about 150,000 tons. And the big oil carriers, which is the very large oil tankers that you see, they are huge. They are they have the weight of 300 to 350,000 tons. So they cannot go through these canals. They have to make the trip around Africa, around South America. So they can't go through these canals. So they have to take the long route because they are very big.
Yeah, you can imagine. So, how does it affect India? Because I read that our central government has also made some plan to deal with this situation arising through this blockage, including advising ships to reroute via Cape of Good Hope and all. Because, but
Correct.
this will take additional 15 days time, right?
Yes. So our most important market is Europe. So Indian exports, if you see, India exports mainly, women's garments, cotton, these kinds of products that we export. Our major market is Europe.
Okay.
Like 60% is Europe. Rest is distributed in other countries. America is not as big market for India because America is further. Now, if you want to reach Europe from India, Suez Canal is the only easy, quick route to Europe. That's the cheapest route. In fact, Suez Canal was made so that Europe could access Indian spices. So it was made for us. Okay. So, but when Suez Canal is blocked, you have to go through entire African continent. I mean, around Africa.
So I guess even Britishers came
That
from this
adds.
way only.
No, Britishers came around Africa only first, but they created this Suez Canal was created so that cuts the travel time between India and Britain and Europe basically. So it was not there initially. It was man-made.
I read Artificial Sea Channel.
Yeah. So it was created. I think French engineers were involved initially, and that was created for cutting down this distance between India and Europe. So it is very advantageous for us to have that Suez Canal open. Now, if you see the photos and all, it's actually the salvage operations. If you see, it's a very critical choke point from India's point of view. So, if let's say we have to send 100 ships worth of goods from India to Europe, now entire African continent you have to traverse for these 100 ships because otherwise they will get stuck in that canal jam. So that is equivalent to 15 days worth of fuel, manpower, all these things and delays. So, and secondly, Cape of Good Hope it is called Cape of Good Hope because most of the it is the worst sea to navigate.
That is the
So
only hope
insurance
after
cost is
Suez Canal.
no, it is only not that way. It has got lot of shallow rocks and all. So lot of earlier, like now modern navigation is still much better, but in earlier times, lot of ships used to get shipwrecked in that Cape of Good Hope. So it was only expert navigators could guide their ships around the Cape of Good Hope.
Okay.
Which is the southernmost tip of Africa.
Africa.
That's why it was called Good Hope. So so insurance cost is also higher if you go around Cape of Good Hope because your chance of your ship getting damaged is higher.
Got it.
So all these costs add up, and then we have in many of these trade things we have margin of 10%. If all these costs add up, then the margin goes away.
So due to this blockage now, the marine traffic is increasing on both sides, right? So there is an estimate which says that the total blockage created would make around 300-350 vessels to be in the traffic. So how will it affect our our market, the prices of our goods? Do you think it will increase drastically? And what type of goods will be mostly affected?
No, it should not increase that much because it's just a question of couple of weeks. So there will be delays. So if you have some products coming in from Europe to you will have experienced some delays. But the products coming in from Europe is basically high-end products. So anyways, they have inventories. Okay. So if you say your Rolls-Royce was coming or Rolls-Royce parts were coming over, then they will get delayed a week, and it doesn't matter that much. But the products which Indian manufacturers were selling in Europe, those matter too, because they are, if see, if a $1 product gets delayed by 2 weeks, you will find some other product to use. Whereas if there is $500 product, then you will wait for 1 or 2, 3-4 days more. So that's the point. But anyways, this is not that big of a deal, but it just indicates how important managing these routes is. And who is managing these routes? It's the US. US keeps these routes free so that your global traffic can move. And India, coming to the geopolitics side of it, India sits on top of 3 of these routes in terms of oil, if you ask me, but 2 of these canals for global trade. That is why China is, worried about India. So this is in one of the earlier episodes we had discussed this. But India can block Suez Canal route very easily. Because after Suez Canal there is the Red Sea, and at the mouth of Red Sea you can just position your naval vessels, and then you will not be able to access that. Of course, if India does that, US will try to attack India. But if US and India want to restrict which vessels pass through, they can do that. That's why that chord becomes important. The second important canal or the route is the Singapore Strait, the Malacca Strait. And we have an island from the Andaman and Nicobars, which is right at the mouth of this Singapore Strait. So we can watch anything and everything that comes through Malacca Strait. We can reach Singapore from Andaman Islands within I think 200 miles, or not 200 miles, about maybe, it's quite close. It's right at the mouth.
Yeah, so and that's why we also have a separate independent naval command, I think, in the Andaman.
Yes. So for this, and you can see how easily the routes can be disrupted. Like if we see the implication of this, see how terrorism affected civilian travel. Terrorists came as civilians. Terrorism is war by other means. So if you took your army and started going towards another country, the country will stop you because your army is coming and they feel threatened. But if a terrorist goes into that other country, they won't even know until the terrorist creates that blast or whatever he wants to create. So now imagine if you wanted to block Suez Canal and Singapore Strait, this is what can be done. Take a big cargo ship and create a mess in the middle. Suppose it was contaminated radioactive stuff which was in that cargo ship, then we would have had a bigger problem, because now there is a radioactive stuff going on there. Now nobody can use that canal until that, so all these measures have to be in place. And this is the crucial part, that one person in a cargo ship, these cargo ships are costly, but they are not as costly as having a sleeper cell. Yeah, so you have these kinds of cargo ships, and if there is some untoward incident happening like that, you will disrupt the whole world trade by accessing these 3 points. And that is a bigger worry, and it tells you how vulnerable the whole global network is, despite we are in 21st century. And now other part is similarly, just like you can disrupt goods traffic, you can disrupt information traffic also by cutting the undersea cables.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we have lots of submarine cables, but they can be cut,
And
then
they,
you will have to rely.
it happens. I mean, there are many accidents going on, so these cables are cut, but they are repaired. So we don't know usually, and
Yes.
so, and how many people usually know that our internet is working due to these cables mainly.
Yeah.
The so that's there, but you have a valid point. I mean, it has happened in the past. I guess in some country in Africa, I think Lithuania or something, some country like that, which had no internet for few days. Like there was nothing due to
Yeah.
this cable. They had only one or two cables, very less. So these were cut off, and they had no internet throughout their country. So that can be
Then
a geopolitically.
if people cannot access TikTok, they become very problematic. Or
Yeah,
Twitter
yeah.
these days.
They can't even protest then. There's no internet.
No.
Okay.
No, and there's one more thing that that is important. That just like supply chains are dependent on routes, they are also dependent on the supplier, right? So in many of these cases, the Chinese manufacturers were the sole suppliers. Now, when Chinese manufacturers shut down because China was under lockdown, we had a problem in goods. And in fact, if you try to buy a computer processor, or if you try to buy a graphics card today, it's very costly, because the shipments from China, Taiwan have been lagging because the factories were shut down, because all of them were shut down. So products were not manufactured. Now they are not manufactured, they cannot be shipped. Okay.
Right.
So that has created a sort of increase in cost of all the products of related to computers. So if you want to buy a hard disk, if you want to buy power supplies, there was a huge shortage of power supplies, which is for computers. There's so much that people were saying ki instead of using a 500 watt power, if you can find a 1000 watt power supply, use it, because power supplies are not available. So it was it wasn't that extent, because whatever power supply you find, you use, and the prices were so high that it became a problem. So so one aspect of global trade disruptions is the routes, which can be disrupted by a ship blocking a canal. But the other, like we were discussing, is manufacturer itself being constrained. And most of these manufacturers were in China, and that's why there is a major movement going on for having another manufacturer, like an alternate to Chinese manufacturer, because you have some problem and China is no longer a reliable supplier because of geopolitical issues more than anything. So particularly since what happened was, earlier Canada had contracted that China will supply vaccines to Canada. But but China withheld the vaccine, saying that you first release the CFO of Huawei, otherwise we will not supply vaccines. And they started making demands. So then Canada had to talk to India, and we are now in process of, I don't know, whatever we are doing. So there are lots of geopolitical issues when it comes to having China as the sole supplier. So now that supplier diversification is also going on. So now you have companies trying to manufacture goods in Vietnam, in Thailand, in India, as a alternate to China. And from India now these goods will be shipped across the world. So to gain that full advantage, India also needs to have stable trade routes. And India is very good in terms of geographical positioning, because we have access to European trade routes and the Pacific trade routes, and both are within our domain. So we are very good, we are well positioned in terms of geographical location. But if these kinds of disruptions happen, then we'll have to watch out for them. So increasingly, we will also have to sort of control and have some say in managing what kind of, accidents or untoward incidences or some sort of geopolitical policing we'll have to do in collaboration with the Americans, because Americans are the policemen for these trade routes. So if we are able to do that, then we will be able to maintain our free trade across the world. So this is the essence of the vulnerabilities of global trade in terms of supply routes, in terms of these canals, as well as in terms of suppliers.
Okay, so let's hope this issue is sorted. The ship is the cargo is repaired, or whatever the fault is gets repaired, and the marine traffic gets cleared so that it doesn't affect the global trade much. And also, much dependence on Chinese trade is reduced. Avoided, reduced,
Yeah.
and India uses this opportunity
Yes,
to
hopefully.
grow.
Yes.
Mhm. Okay.
Vietnam is actually capturing this opportunity very well. I hope India gets
Smartphone manufacturing has increased a lot in India in few years, from what I know. Yeah. Let's see how we utilize this opportunity. And please listen to our earlier episodes. It's available here on all the podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple, Google, etc. And if you like this podcast, if you feel that it adds some value to you, then please share this podcast episode with your friends, colleagues, family, etc. And do feel free to leave some feedback on Apple Podcasts. Thank you.
Thank you.